Truth in History with Charles A. Jennings.
Welcome to Truth in History. On this video, I would like to start a series concerning the book of Zechariah. The book of Zechariah stands out among all the prophets of the Old Testament, along with Isaiah, as a messianic prophecy. And there's some very unusual things about this book, some, to me, very exciting things about this book. And it's unusual in the chronology of the Old Testament and where it fell and where the time in which Zacharias lived. Because it is dealing with the present situation of the post-exilic period, but yet it is looking forward to the coming of Christ, His first, His second coming, and also His kingdom reign. And that's one of the beautiful things about this book. But concerning the man himself, Zacharias himself, his name means remembered by the Lord. It's very significant that he was born at that period of time and given that name by his parents, because after the 70 years of captivity, when the Judah nation was in Babylon, it looked like everything had just gone smash. I mean, you could get the impression, no doubt, that this was the end of God's dealing with that nation, because the walls were torn down, the temple itself was destroyed, and no doubt the city itself had been absolutely torn apart because of the invasion and the captivity and the deportation of the people to Babylon. And I'm sure that the Babylonian soldiers had no mercy. They just came through and committed all types of atrocities, no doubt, against the people, against the city, against the buildings, the houses, etc. So everything looked dismal and dark, and no doubt despair, no hope. But here in Babylon, this young man was born, this baby was born by the name of Zacharias. And his mother and his father named him Remembered by the Lord. That was a prophetic name. It was a prophetic proclamation that the Lord had not forgotten His people. So, this is the greatest prophet, really, among the post-exilic period, along with Ezra, Nehemiah, Haggai, and Malachi. These prophets, each one had a mission, each one had a commission to fill, and Ezra and Nehemiah basically were scribes, but they were a big part of the rebuilding of the walls and the restoration of the law of God back in Judah. Now you have to keep in mind that out of Babylon, after 70 years, there were good figs and bad figs. In other words, good Jews and bad Jews, simply put. And Jeremiah talks about that. But being born in Babylon, Zechariah and his family experienced the transition or the overthrow of the Babylonian Empire, and now it was the Medes and the Persians. Judah was conquered by Babylon, but now Darius, the king, what he's going to do is give them permission to go and rebuild the city and the temple. So it's also important to hold, this is just an introduction to really the book. It's also important to understand that it was not only the physical, literal city that was going to be rebuilt. Now, Zacharias himself was of a priestly family. He was of a priestly family, and working with him was Zerubbabel, the political leader, and Joshua, a priestly leader. So we have these two offices of prince and priest. One civil, the other one religious. And Zerubbabel and Joshua are going to symbolize, throughout this book, they're going to symbolize a restoration that's going to take place. And that restoration will not only be political leadership and religious leadership in Judah, but it will be a type of the dual office of Jesus Christ, of king priest, Melchizedek being the king priest of Israel, all of Israel, not just Judah. So there's some wonderful and exciting things in this book. Now, in chapter 1 of the book of Zechariah, now, first of all, let me give you a date. Scholars date this book to have been written somewhere between 520 and 490 BC. 520 and 490 BC. And as I said before, Zechariah was of the tribe of Levi. And his name remembered by the Lord. So we come to chapter 1 and verse 1. Kind of gives us a setting for the whole book. In the eighth month, in the second year of Darius, came the word of the Lord unto Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, the son of Iddo the prophet, saying. Now, Zechariah himself, being born of the tribe of Levi, was a priest, but he was also a prophet. Now you have that third office coming into play. First of all, we had Zerubbabel with the civil office as prince, and then Joshua with the religious office as priest, and then you've got a man here that is both priest and prophet. So the Lord can use a man however he wants to, just like Samuel. Samuel, he was a prophet, he was a priest, and he was a king. So, not the king of Israel, but he was a prince. He judged the people. So, there's a slight problem. Verse 1 says that Zacharias was the son of Berechiah, the son of Iddo the prophet. Turn in your Bible to Matthew 23 and verse 35. And we read this. 23:35. Let's begin with verse 34. It says, "Wherefore, behold, I send unto you prophets and wise men and scribes, and some of them ye shall kill and crucify." Now, Jesus is talking to the Pharisees. "And some of them shall ye scourge in your synagogues, and persecute them from city to city, that upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel unto the blood of Zacharias, or Zechariah, son of Berechias, whom ye slew between the temple and the altar." When it says temple and the altar, it means the temple porch and the altar. Now, here in Matthew 23:35 is consistent with Zechariah 1:1, Zechariah the son of Berechiah. But if you will notice that in Nehemiah, the book of Nehemiah, going all the way back to Nehemiah chapter 12 and verse number 4. Nehemiah 12 and verse 4. It says, 12:4, "Iddu and Ginnetho, Abijah, Menahem, and a couple other names." It says Iddu. Well, verse 1, it says, "Now these are the priests and the Levites that went up with Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel." So that means that it's setting, Nehemiah is listing the names of the priests and their sons that went up with Zerubbabel to help restore the temple and the city of Jerusalem. Also in verse 16, it mentions Iddu, Zechariah. So it mentions Iddu and Zechariah, but yet in Zechariah 1:1, it says Zechariah the son of Berechiah. But it also says the son of Iddu. So apparently Iddu was Zacharias' grandfather. Zacharias, then his father Berechias, and then his father Iddu. Now, some scholars say that this is not the Zechariah that was slain between the porch and the altar. And I'm going to leave that up to you. But it appears to me, if the translation of Scripture is correct, of which we believe it is, it would be this Zechariah that wrote the book that was slain between the porch, the temple porch, and the altar in the rebuilt temple in Jerusalem. Now, some scholars say that found in 2 Chronicles 24:20, if you follow me there, 2 Chronicles 24:20, 2 Chronicles 24:20, it says this: "And the Spirit of God came upon Zechariah the son of Jehoiada, the priest, which stood above the people, and said unto them, Thus saith God, Why transgress ye the commandments of the Lord, that ye cannot prosper? Because ye have forsaken the Lord, he hath also forsaken you. And they conspired against him, and stoned him with stones at the commandment of the king in the court of the house of the Lord. Thus Joash the king remembered not the kindness which Jehoiada his father had done to him, but slew his son. And when he died, he said, the Lord look upon it and require it. Now, this Zechariah that was killed, that was martyred, was long before the Zechariah that we read about in the book of Zechariah. So there's a long time span between this Zechariah that was before the captivity, back when the Judah nation was functioning before the Babylonian captivity, and then the Zechariah that we're talking about is after Judah was taken captive and then brought back to Jerusalem. So I'm pointing that out because it's a matter of just simply research and also knowing your way through Scripture. And if someone mentions it, well, they say, well, there's an inconsistency in the Bible. Well, we know that the Zechariah in 2 Chronicles was slain. Is that the man that Jesus was referring to? But Matthew said it was the son of Berechiah. So we're going to believe that the one that Jesus referred to is the one that we're reading about in the book of Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, the grandson of Iddu, the priest. So to me, that kind of settles it. In the Bible, there's a lot of different men by the same name. So that happens throughout history. If you do your own genealogy, and your last name is Smith, well, you look in the roster or, census, there's John Smith and John Smith and John Smith, and some of them are kin to one another. Some of them are separated by 100 years or 200 years. So anyway, the truth of the book of Zechariah still stands. Now, what age was Zechariah when he began to write this book and to prophesy? In Zechariah chapter 2 and verse number 4, this is the word that was said unto him. Run, speak to this young man. Now, young back in those days could have been 30 or 40 years old. Young these days, you're a teenager or a young adult. But regardless, the Lord laid his hand upon Zechariah and called him as a prophet and gave him what is called a prophetic perspective to look through the corridors of time and see the mountain peaks of prophecy. One here, another one higher, and another one higher, as he saw the mountain peaks of prophecy. And he saw the coming of the Messiah, Jesus the Christ. He saw him in his ministry, and he saw him in his kingdom reign. So there's Zechariah. The setting in which he prophesied. The setting in which he prophesied was turbulent times. We think times are bad now. Times have always been bad. There's always been threats from foreign nations. The world has always been at war. It's no different today than it was during the time of Christ. It's no different today than it was during the time of Zechariah the prophet. So, kingdoms were overthrowing kingdoms, etc. But to point out something, Babylon had conquered Assyria. They had conquered Egypt. And Babylon had many provinces throughout that part of the world that they controlled. Nebuchadnezzar, then Belshazzar, etc., and we all know the story of the handwriting on the wall. And the Medes and the Persians came in. And the Medes and the Persians, they were people of law. Humanistic law, but yet law. It was the law of the Medes and the Persians, as they say. And whatever they said, that was going to stand, regardless. So they had conquered the greatest empire in the world. And now the Medo-Persians were in control, world control. World control. So that's the setting. And Jerusalem in ashes. And let's go to chapter 1. Start with verse 1. In the 8th month, in the 2nd year of Darius, and he was a Mede, came the word of the Lord unto Zechariah the son of Berechiah, the son of Iddo the prophet, saying, and this is the admonition that Zechariah was given from the Lord to give to the people of Judah. He gave them an admonition to return back to God. Verse 2, the Lord hath been sore displeased with your fathers. Read the books of Samuel, Kings, Chronicles. It's the story of rebellion. It's the story of disobedience. It was the story of just outright being defiant against their God. The true God. They were defiant. But yet the Lord had chosen these people as His own and as His instruments. And Zechariah says, remember, the Lord has been very displeased with your fathers. That's why we are in the mess we are right now. Trying to rebuild the city of Jerusalem is because our fathers disobeyed the law of God. And we can apply that to our nation, America. We are in the mess we're in because of our disobedience and the disobedience of our fathers, grandfathers, and great-grandfathers. The story is the same. Our generation is wicked. Is because our fathers of the previous generation, they didn't do their job in returning our nation back to God. And their fathers failed. And their fathers failed. Verse 3, therefore say unto them, thus saith the Lord of hosts. Now you notice the Lord calls himself the Lord of hosts, which means the Lord of armies. The Lord is a man of war. I know Jesus is meek and lowly, but meekness does not mean weakness. And here the Lord calls himself the Lord of hosts, the Lord of armies. I'm going to come and I'm going to fight to restore Judah and Jerusalem. Turn ye unto me, saith the Lord of hosts, and I will turn unto you, saith the Lord of hosts. He keeps calling himself the Lord of hosts. Be ye not as your fathers, unto whom the former prophets have cried, saying, thus saith the Lord of hosts. Turn ye now from your evil ways and from your evil doings. But they did not hear nor hearken unto me, saith the Lord. So it says, turn unto me, or really return unto me. Return, return, return unto me. That's the cry of a true prophet of God to the people, is to return unto me. You see, this nation has a Christian foundation, America. So we need to return back to that Christian foundation. Verse 5, your fathers, where are they? And the prophets, do they live forever? In other words, he is saying, your fathers are dead. Those prophets, whether they be Jeremiah or Isaiah or all the unnamed prophets of the Old Testament, where are they? They're in their graves. Verse 6, but my words and my statutes, which I commanded my servants the prophets, did they not take hold of your fathers? What does that mean, take hold of your fathers? Overtake your fathers? Did they not outlast your fathers? The words that the prophets spoke in past generations, they still stand, and that's what he is saying. The words that the prophets of God, even in America, you take men that have fought for the inerrancy of Scripture, for the deity of Jesus Christ, men that fought for the inerrancy and the authenticity and the accuracy of this book, such as Gresham Machen and many others of bygone days. Where are they? They're dead. I remember listening to Dr. Carl McIntyre on the radio many years ago, calling for this nation to return back to God. And Dr. Charles Burpo out of Arizona, many, many times on his program, pointing out the sins and the iniquities of our nation, saying, return. Where are those words? The prophets are dead, but their words still stand. That's what this is saying. So the Lord is telling Zechariah, those prophets are dead, former prophets. Your fathers are dead, but have not my words. Take hold of your fathers, overtake your fathers, outlive your fathers? And the answer is yes. So you take the ministry of, say, Dr. Mordecai Ham, a man that was fearless in the pulpit and out of the pulpit, an old Baptist preacher. And he exposed sin. And he knew the Anglo-Israel message. And he knew who we were. And he knew the covenants that we were under. And he was calling his people back to return to God. He's in his grave in Kentucky. But his words still stand. Just like the former prophets in the Old Testament. And they returned and said, like as the Lord of hosts thought to do unto us, according to our ways and according to our doings, so hath he dealt with us. Then beginning in verse number 7 is the first of 10 visions. The first of 10 visions. And this book of Zechariah more or less is in the same category as the book of Revelation in this respect. It's apocalyptic. It has 10 visions in this book of Zechariah. And the book of Revelation has many visions given to John to reveal the coming Christ, the coming Messiah, and his life, his ministry, and right on through to his kingdom reign. And we'll have to get to that in subsequent lessons concerning this book. But first of all, remember that the Lord calls himself in this book the Lord of armies. He comes fighting. Comes fighting. And that plays into this first vision, starting in verse number 7. Upon the 24th day of the 11th month, that's 3 months after his first message, and 3 months after verse number 1, which is the month Sebath, in the 2nd year of Darius, came the word of the Lord unto Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, the son of Iddu the prophet, saying, I saw by night, and behold, a man riding upon a red horse. And he stood among the myrtle trees that were in the bottom. And behind him were there red horses, speckled and white. That word red, there in verse 8, is Adam. It means rosy. And Zechariah said that he saw this vision by night, a man riding upon a red horse. And he stood among the myrtle trees that were in the bottom. Well, to us, a bottom is a river bottom land. Whether that's the actual same thing or not, or whether it's referring to a meadow or a meadow with trees. Not sure. But behind him, there were more horses, red, speckled, and white. Then said I, O my Lord, what are these? Now, you know, in visions, either in Zechariah or Revelation, it's symbolic language. Symbolic language. Some people, like the dispensationalists and the futurists, have tried to literalize everything in the book of Revelation. No, it speaks in symbols and in vision form. And same here in Zechariah. So Zechariah didn't understand what this was. Then said I, O my Lord, what are these? And the angel that talked with me said unto me, I will show thee what these be. And the man that stood among the myrtle trees answered and said, These are they whom the Lord has sent to walk to and fro through the earth. This is a very spiritual book. We cannot understand it just with our carnal mind. These are they whom the Lord has sent to walk to and fro through the earth. They are inspectors. They are ones that God has sent to look, to observe, and to analyze what's going on in the earth. Now, is this symbolizing people of today and people of that day? Those that knew what was going on in the earth and to report back to the Lord? Now, I want to give you an example of this in Genesis 18. And when Abraham was sitting in the tent door, he was sitting in the door of his tent among the plains of Mamre. And three men appeared. One of them was Jesus Christ, a theophany of Christ, a revelation before his birth. And two were angels. And they came down to make an inspection. And they wanted to make an inspection of Sodom and Gomorrah. And in Genesis 18:20, picking up in the middle of this story, and the Lord said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is come unto me, and if not, I will know. And the men turned their faces from thence and went toward Sodom, but Abraham stood yet before the Lord. The Lord remained before Abraham, but the two angels went down to Sodom to make an inspection and to give a report back to the Lord, because the cry of the city was sin, debauchery, corruption, just moral filth. And the Lord sent two angels down there to look it over and say, yes, the cry of it is accurate. It's just as bad as we thought. And I think that it's the same parallel in Zechariah chapter 1. It says, "These are they whom the Lord has sent to walk to and fro through the earth, seeing what's going on among the nations and among the people." Now, these are symbolic of who? Heavenly angels or us, watchmen on the wall, inspecting our nation and saying, "Lord, what you hear coming out of our cities, out of our government, out of our educational system, and out of our churches is accurate. There's sin, disobedience, corruption, filth. Lord, you're hearing right." Because God sends us as messengers, His people, His prophets, His inspectors, and the Lord has many of them that's crying against the filth of America and saying, "Lord, how long are you going to tolerate this state of affairs?" Verse 11, "And they answered the angel of the Lord that stood among the myrtle trees, and said, We have walked to and fro through the earth, and behold, all the earth sitteth still." You see, the Medes and the Persians had conquered all their enemies. Now there was world peace. The earth sitteth still and is at rest. At that time, in the reign of the Medes and the Persians, they had conquered their enemies, and the world was at peace. No turmoil at that present time. Verse number 12. "Then the angel of the Lord answered and said, O Lord of hosts, how long wilt thou not have mercy on Jerusalem and on the cities of Judah, against which thou hast had indignation these 70 years, for the last 70 years of the Babylonian captivity? Lord, how long are you going to have indignation against your people?" And the Lord answered. He answered the angel that talked with me with good words and comfortable words. And this is what he said. "So the angel that communed with me said unto me, Cry thou, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I am jealous for Jerusalem and for Zion with a great jealousy." See, the Lord was not finished with the Judah nation. Why? He was giving them 490 years more of mercy and reprieve to get their act together. 490, that's what Daniel tells us. Until the Messiah comes. And to fulfill those 490 years, which are the 70 weeks of Daniel. All 70 weeks. There's no such thing as a future 70th week of Daniel. That's futurism, dispensationalism. It's just simply incorrect. But he's saying, I am jealous. I will fight to restore Jerusalem and Judah. And I am very sore displeased with the heathen that are at ease. that are at peace. Because verse number 11 tells us that the world was at peace. The heathen nations were at peace. I am very sore displeased with the heathen that are at ease, for I was but a little displeased. And I'm going to add the words, with my people. And they helped forward the affliction. He was not only displeased with his people, but the Lord was displeased with the heathen. Why? I am very sore displeased with the heathen that are at ease, for I was a little displeased with his own people, with the Judahites, because they, the heathen, helped create havoc and destruction and help destroy the city of Jerusalem and Judah. Even though the Lord said it would happen and prophesied that it would happen, now the Lord said, I was a little displeased with my people, but I'm very sore displeased with the heathen. I am really displeased. I have used the heathen to correct my people. Now I'm going to correct the heathen. So keep that in mind concerning our modern day. The Lord is using foreign people, open borders, corruption from other nations, influx of aliens into our nation to correct us. But don't forget, we're His people. He will turn around and correct them. That's what we see in this verse. Verse 16. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, I am returned to Jerusalem with mercies. I'm going to have mercy upon my people Judah. Even though there's good figs and bad figs there, good Jews and bad Jews, according to Jeremiah, my house shall be built in it, saith the Lord of hosts, and a line shall be stretched forth upon Jerusalem, a measuring line for rebuilding the city. I'm going to tell my prophets and my priests and my scribes how to rebuild the city. Cry yet, saying, thus saith the Lord of hosts. Constantly, He's calling Himself the Lord of hosts. My cities through prosperity shall yet be spread abroad, and the Lord shall yet comfort Zion, and shall yet choose Jerusalem. Choose Jerusalem of that day. He's not talking about the Jerusalem of this day. This is a different dispensation. He used that city of Jerusalem before the Babylonian captivity. It had to be rebuilt, and He used it again. He restored it again until Messiah came. But Jesus said to the Pharisees, your house is left unto you desolate, because they rejected Him. And He told His disciples, not one stone of this temple is going to be left unturned, because it's going to be destroyed by the Roman army. So that prophecy that He would yet comfort Zion and shall use Jerusalem, that's fulfilled. So a dispensationalist cannot come along and say, well, you see, He's going to favor the Zionist nation over there in Palestine today. No, they're taking it out of context. But that's the first vision. That's the first vision that Zechariah had. Now, in closing, just to give us a recap of the message of the book, and we'll get more into the visions in part 2 and part 3 and so forth. Zechariah, by divine inspiration, prophesied of the first and the second coming of Christ. He prophesied of the lowliness of Christ, his meekness. He prophesied that he would be a shepherd to his people, Israel. He prophesied of the people's rejection of Jesus, the Messiah. And he even prophesied concerning the smiting and the people being scattered, the sheep being scattered. Zechariah also prophesied concerning the return of the Lord in his glory. And he prophesied concerning peace among all nations. And he prophesied concerning Jesus Christ as king over his kingdom. So, in subsequent lessons, we'll cover a lot of material. But if you would like to subscribe to our magazine, which is free of charge, just contact us by mail or email or phone, and we'll send you a free copy and even put you on the mailing list to receive future copies. But that lesson today is just an introduction of what Zechariah, the book of Zechariah, is all about. And I want to leave you with what Zechariah himself said, that it's going to be restored. His people, his kingdom, the Lord's kingdom is going to be restored, not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord.